Okay, I am going to demonstrate the quick and dirty about how I do convert medium complexity logos to black and white for laser engraving. What makes this a medium complexity logo is that it has multiple colors, it has both text and an image, but why it is not a high complexity logo is because the outlines are pretty simple. The delineations between the colors are large and simple, and we are not dealing with a gradient in the colors. The colors are solid, and each color object is one color. So with images that involve text uh, and objects in them, I have had the best results when I do the object and the text separately, because a lot of times I'll find that Adobe Illustrator's image trace uh, uh, settings will not image trace rendered text very well. And my best luck with that is actually to isolate the text part, upload it to a web program such as What the Font, and identify the text and retype it. That usually ends up being the simplest solution, because otherwise I end up having to like literally redraw the text line by line, and that takes forever. Um, Images where you end up having to draw and trace out the outline of something line by line, those are high complexity images. They take a lot of time. They tend to be objects that have a lot of detail, or they have complex gradients that are critical to being able to visually identify what is in the image. For example, one such project that I embarked on was coming up with a digitized version of the Florida state flag, which is the center seal part is a very complex image, and I ended up locating a version that somebody else had already vectorized, and I still had to simplify that. But anyway, so fortunately this image is much more straightforward. So steps: separate text and image, process the text, try a quick image trace. If the image trace is unsatisfactory, identify the font, retype it, and then you can process the image, decide which of the parts of this image should be black and which parts should be white, and then run an image trace on it, adjust the settings until you get what you wanted. You might have to break up the image into smaller pieces, and then remove the background white areas and clean it up. Okay, so the first thing I do is I select the original JPEG that I'm dealing with here, and I copy it. On the Mac it's Command C, on a PC it's Control C. So now I'm going to hit, I'm going to paste it, and I'm going to put it over here. That's going to be my backup. So now I'm going to crop this down. I'm going to do the text first, and so I crop this down to the text. I hit enter. Now I can zoom in. So now I'm going to go over to my image trace panel. If you don't see your image trace panel, you can go up to Window and look for it in here. See, if I unselect it, now it's gone. If I go back to Window and I reselect image trace, now it's back. So I select that original JPEG that's now been cropped down to just text, and I can click preview. And the preview actually looks pretty decent. But see, I can move it down, and I can't see anything at all. Then I move it a little more, Now I'm getting, let's see, now that the image looks pretty good. Let's see what it looks like compared to that. See, now the lines are too thin. It's starting to look muddy. So this is kind of a bit of an art. You kind of figure out what looks good to you. This one actually looks pretty darn good. But I want to demonstrate something for fixing something, so I'm actually going to go one step below that. So now I'm going to unclick preview so that it's unselected, but you don't have to do that. So now I'm going to release the object and expand object and fill. So you notice how that's blue around it now. So if I hit undo, see how the only thing that's blue is the outside of this. There is a way to be able to see where the vectors are on the image. If you go to View Outline, which is Command Y, and this will take a black and white, will show you in black and white, it will show you the vector outlines in your image. So what you're seeing here is you see that this is just basically the computer with regards to vectors thinks that this is just a box. So if I remove that and I expand this black and white object, there, now you see the blue. Now if I do Command Y to look at the outline of it, now you can see that there are vector outlines of each of these areas. The black is outlined and the white is outlined. So the next thing I want to do is clean this up a little bit. So I'm seeing there's a little bit of a gap in there. I'm going to show you how to get rid of that. So I go back to Command Y, and so now I can see the handles, and I'm going to click the direct selection tool. So you could see that you could drag it manually or not. But what I am actually going to do is I'm going to hit the delete anchor point tool and delete that anchor point. And look at that, there were 2 anchor points there. And I think that is because we still have the white in the back of this image. So we get out of the outline mode. If you take your regular selection tool, select all of this and drag it out here, look, that's still white in the back. Why is that still white? What if we delete it? Oop, no, it's all gone. So what we want to do is we want to ungroup this. So what this did is this image traced it into 2 colors because that's what we told it to do, mode black and white. So we got black letters and then we got white. So we want to ungroup all of these objects so that we can separate them. So the simplest way to do this is hit Command Shift G. So that will ungroup a whole bunch of stuff, and then use the direct selection tool. And now notice that the direct selection tool is now selecting just that white part. So we're gonna save some time here, and now we've selected that white part. Now see it's white with no outline. We're going to select same fill color. So that's going to select all of the white stuff on here. Hit delete. Now we're left with just the black. Okay, so that's looking pretty good. So what we're going to do next is we're going to make a new layer and call this layer text. We're going to select all of this, move it to arrange, send to current layer, send to the text layer. Then we're going to hide it. So now we're going to work on the image. So we're going to copy this, we're going to paste it, move it back kind of onto our work area, crop image. We're going to crop this just down to the image. Hit enter. And zoom in. Okay, so this is a relatively straightforward image to digitize. The colors are solid, they are consistent, they're not gradients. We have one color and then another color and then one color, and then this would lend itself pretty well to having these dark areas black and leaving this outside area as white. So this part is a little bit more complicated because we have three different colors in this area. We have the yellow, we have the gray, and the dark gray. So that's 3 different colors. So is there an obvious way to turn this into 2 colors, which is black and white? Well, we could do the yolk black and leave the highlight on the yolk white, and then if this was white also, if that were white, then there would be a contrast between the black and the white. The black and white are adjacent to each other. And what we could do is we could have this ribbon as black. So let's run an image trace on that and see what happens. Okay, well, it pulled up one of those little swags as black, so then we'll move it up. Oop. Now we got two. Oh, now we got that part. In some images, this is where you have to stop and save it, and then do an image trace differently on the rest of the image, because sometimes if this is showing up now but that top part is not, if you keep going with the threshold, it's going to overexpose the bottom part, and in order to get it high enough to be able to do the top part correctly. And so some of the images you have to do image trace in multiple steps. But let's just move this up and see what happens. We'll just get a little bit smaller. Oh, that's looking pretty good. We're getting that ribbon there. But see, if you do it too high, you get the whole thing turns black. You can actually click in this box and push the down arrow. Now see, it's over exposing it. It's making that whole egg area black. We just keep lowering it, and once we lower it down to a certain level, it actually looks pretty close to what we're thinking might turn out as a pretty decent trace. Let's see. Just trying to decide if I want that part to go away, and I think I do. Okay, so that looks pretty good actually. So I'm going to take it off of preview. I'm going to ungroup it, Command Shift G, Command Shift G, Command Shift G, or you can hold down Command Shift and hit G, 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 G. Okay, so now I'm going to take the direct selection tool and select, oops, looks like that is still grouped. Okay, Shift G. Oh, because you know what we forgot to do here? We forgot to expand it. Okay, let's expand it. And then you hit Command Y, and now you can see it's actually expanded now. And now I can select that one part and see it's white. So select same fill color and delete, and now all of the white is gone. You want to get rid of that white and have it just the black, and have the background image showing through, because if you leave it white, there's a possibility that if you export this to JPEG and bring it back, whatever, you could somehow end up with some noise in the background image, and then with your laser engraver, it's sensitive enough it could pick up the noise and kind of mess up your engraving image, and there's no need when you can just delete it. Okay, so now I got that. Make a new layer. This will be the logo image. So now right click, arrange, send to current layer. So now I'm going to highlight both of those. So now the last thing we want to do is make sure that they are proportioned next to each other. So the simplest thing is, let's lock the logo and the text, and we'll grab our backup image and put those under there. And so we'll line it up with one part of it first. I just randomly picked the image, and I just moved it around with the left and right arrows until it lined up. So now I'm going to lock the background image, and I'm going to unlock the text. I'm going to move that over the top. Okay, and now I'm going to move the background image, and now we have that. You can select it all if you want. There. Okay, so now I save it as, so you don't mess up your original. Save it as vector, and now you're done. Now you have an engravable vector image.